First contact. The aging solar panels creaked as Dr. Evelyn Chen made her nightly rounds of Outpost Epsilon. 20 years into her assignment on this desolate moon, she still marveled at the stark beauty of the starscape above. Countless pinpricks of light punctuated the inky void, reminding her of the vastness of the universe and humanity's tenuous foothold within it. A sudden flash caught Evelyn's eye, brighter than any star. She squinted, trying to make sense of the anomaly. The light grew larger, resolving into a distinctive shape as it plummeted toward the moon's surface. "Jenkins," Evelyn called into her comm unit. "We've got an incoming object. Looks like some kind of ship." Static crackled for a moment before her colleague's voice came through. "Whoa, hold on, Doc. There's nothing scheduled to arrive for months." "You sure about this?" "Positive," Evelyn replied, her heart racing. "And it's coming in hot. Brace for impact." The ground shook as the vessel struck the lunar surface less than a kilometer from the outpost. Evelyn steadied herself against a support strut, watching in awe as a plume of dust and debris billowed skyward. "Jenkins, suit up," she ordered. "We need to investigate." 20 minutes later, Evelyn and Jenkins approached the crash site in their rugged lunar rover. As the dust settled, they caught their first glimpse of the alien craft. Its sleek, organic lines were unlike anything in the human arsenal. The vessel gleamed with an iridescent sheen that seemed to shift colors as they drew closer. "My God," Jenkins breathed. "It's beautiful." Evelyn nodded, momentarily transfixed. Then her scientific training kicked in. "Let's run some scans before we get any closer. We don't know if—" Her words were cut short as a seam appeared in the ship's hull. With a soft hiss, a portion of the metallic skin peeled back, revealing a darkened interior. Evelyn and Jenkins exchanged a nervous glance, their hands hovering near the emergency recall buttons on their suits. A figure emerged from the shadows, unfolding itself with fluid grace. It stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body a mashup of insectoid and cephalopod features. Multiple limbs extended from a central thorax, while a cluster of eyes surveyed the humans with alien intensity. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally made first contact, and it had quite literally landed on their doorstep. The aliens' mouthparts twitched, emitting a series of clicks and whistles. A moment later, a mechanized voice issued from a device on its carapace. "Greetings, Earthborn. I am Zixlith of the Consortium. My arrival is unintended. Assistance required." Evelyn stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. "I'm Dr. Evelyn Chen of the Lunar Science Academy. We'll do what we can to help, but I have so many questions. How did you find us? What brought you here?" The alien's eyes swiveled, focusing on Evelyn. "Threat approaches. Grave danger to all sentient life. Humans may be key to survival." Before Evelyn could process this ominous statement, alarms blared from the outpost. Jenkins checked his wrist display, his face paling. "Doc, we've got a problem," he said. "Long-range sensors just picked up multiple bogies entering the system, and they're heading straight for us." Evelyn looked from Jenkins to the towering alien before her. In the span of mere minutes, her world had expanded beyond imagination, and now faced an unknown threat. Whatever came next, she knew nothing would ever be the same. "Zixlith," she said, steeling her nerves. "I think you'd better come with us. It seems we have a lot to discuss." As they loaded the alien into their rover and sped back toward the outpost, Evelyn's mind raced. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries, but no one had anticipated it happening like this. First contact, a dire warning, and now an impending confrontation with unknown forces. She glanced at their strange new ally. Whatever secrets this being held, whatever dangers were hurtling toward them, Evelyn knew that the next few days would determine not just the fate of their lonely outpost, but potentially that of the entire human race. Uneasy alliance. The command center of Outpost Epsilon buzzed with frantic activity. Dr. Evelyn Chen stood before a holographic display, studying the incoming vessels with growing concern. Beside her, the towering form of Zixlith loomed, its multifaceted eyes fixed on the same data. 6 ships, Jenkins reported, his fingers flying over a control panel. Definitely not human design. They'll be here in less than 48 hours. Evelyn turned to their alien guest. Zixlith, you mentioned a threat. I'm guessing this is it. The alien's translation device crackled to life. Affirmative. Scourge vessels. Consume all in path. Must prepare defenses. Defenses. Jenkins scoffed. We're a research station, not a military outpost. We've got a few mining lasers, and that's about it. Zixlith's upper limbs waved in what Evelyn interpreted as agitation. Insufficient. Require human ingenuity. Adaptability. Key to survival. Evelyn's mind raced. Their situation seemed hopeless, but she refused to give up. Okay, let's think this through. Zixlith, what can you tell us about these Scourge? What are their weaknesses? As the alien began to explain, Evelyn found herself marveling at the surreal nature of their predicament. Here they were, planning humanity's defense alongside a being from beyond the stars. It was everything she had ever dreamed of as a scientist, and everything she had feared as a human facing the unknown. Over the next several hours, an unlikely war council formed. Evelyn and her small team of researchers huddled with Zixlith, combining their knowledge and resources in a desperate bid for survival. The Scourge ships rely on a hive mind network, Zixlith explained. Disrupt the central node. Others become disorganized. Jenkins leaned forward, intrigued. Like a botnet attack. We might be able to work with that. What if we repurposed our communication array to broadcast an interference signal? Evelyn nodded, building on the idea. And we could use the mining lasers to target their primary communication relays. It won't destroy them, but it might buy us some time. As they worked, Evelyn couldn't help but study their alien ally. Despite its intimidating appearance, Zixlith displayed a keen intellect and surprising patience with human limitations. Still, she sensed there was much the being wasn't telling them. Zixlith, she ventured during a lull in their planning. You said humans might be key to survival. What did you mean by that? The alien's body shifted, and Evelyn could have sworn she detected discomfort in its posture. Human physiology. Unique. Adaptable. Potential solution to Scourge threat, but requires further study. Before Evelyn could press for details, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Jenkins swore, checking the sensors. They're ahead of schedule. First ship entering lunar orbit now. Evelyn's heart raced as she watched the massive vessel appear on their screens. Theory was about to become reality, and the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Everyone to your stations, she ordered. Zixlith, I hope you're ready for this. The alien's reply was solemn. Ready or not, the future begins now. As the team scrambled to implement their hastily devised defenses, Evelyn felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was a scientist, not a soldier, yet here she stood on the front lines of an interstellar conflict. The first energy blasts from the Scourge ship rocked the outpost. Dust rained from the ceiling as the structure groaned under the assault. Evelyn steadied herself, then turned to her unlikely alien companion. Well, Zixlith, she said with grim determination, let's show these Scourge what humans, and whatever you are, can do when we work together. As they raced to activate their defenses, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was just the beginning. Whatever the outcome, the universe had changed forever, and humanity along with it. Cultural exchange. The dust settled as the last echoes of battle faded away. Outpost Epsilon stood battered but unbroken, a testament to the unlikely alliance forged between humans and their alien visitor. Dr. Evelyn Chen surveyed the damage from the command center, her eyes heavy with exhaustion but glimmering with triumph. I can't believe it actually worked, Jenkins marveled, shutting down the makeshift signal jammer they'd cobbled together. Evelyn nodded, allowing herself a small smile. Human ingenuity, and alien technology. Quite the combination. She turned to Zixlith, who stood quietly in the corner, its multifaceted eyes scanning readouts on a holographic display. "We've bought ourselves some time, but I doubt the Scourge will stay away for long. We need to understand more about what we're up against, and about each other." The alien's translation device hummed to life. "Agreed. Knowledge exchange critical. Must understand human potential." Over the next few days, as they worked to repair the outpost and strengthen their defenses, an unprecedented cultural exchange unfolded. Evelyn and her team took turns sharing information about Earth, human history, and the basics of human biology. In return, Zixlith offered tantalizing glimpses into its own species and the wider galactic community. "Your adaptability is remarkable," Zixlith observed as Evelyn explained human genetic diversity. "No other species we've encountered possesses such potential for rapid evolution." Evelyn's scientific curiosity was piqued. "What about your own species? Your biology seems so different from ours." Zixlith's upper limbs waved in a gesture she'd come to recognize as thoughtful consideration. "We are specialized, engineered for specific functions within consortium, efficient, but limited." As they delved deeper into discussions of biology and society, Evelyn began to sense an underlying tension in their alien ally. Zixlith seemed both fascinated and troubled by human capabilities, particularly when it came to reproduction. "Your method of genetic recombination," the alien mused, "it allows for such variation, such unpredictability." Jenkins, who had been listening nearby, chuckled. "Yeah, that's one way to put it. Though I'd say there's plenty predictable about human reproduction. It usually leads to sleepless nights and empty bank accounts." Evelyn shot him a reproachful look, but she couldn't help noticing how intently Zixlith focused on this topic. "Is reproduction different for your species?" she asked carefully. The alien's body shifted in what she now recognized as discomfort. "We do not reproduce as individuals. New members are cultivated, designed for specific roles." As Zixlith explained the intricacies of its species' highly controlled and centralized reproduction process, Evelyn's mind whirled with the implications. The more she learned, the more she began to understand why humans might be seen as a key to survival against the Scourge threat. "Your genetic diversity," Zixlith concluded, "combined with your adaptability and problem-solving skills, it makes your species uniquely suited to combat the Scourge. They cannot predict you as they can others." Evelyn nodded slowly, a dawning realization sending a chill down her spine. "And that's why you really came here, isn't it? Not just for help, but to study us. To what? Find a way to introduce our traits into your own species." The alien's silence was answer enough. The atmosphere in the room grew tense as the implications sank in. Jenkins voiced what they were all thinking. "So what happens now? Are we lab rats or allies?" Zixlith's reply was solemn. "Both, perhaps. The fate of many worlds may depend on what we learn here." As the gravity of their situation settled over them, alarms once again blared through the outpost. Jenkins rushed to the sensor array, his face paling. "Multiple Scourge ships detected," he reported grimly. "Looks like they've adapted to our little trick. They'll be here within hours." Evelyn looked from Jenkins to Zixlith, her mind racing. The cultural exchange had opened her eyes to possibilities beyond imagination, but it had also revealed new depths to their predicament. As the distant rumble of approaching ships grew louder, she knew they were standing at a crossroads not just for humanity, but for life throughout the galaxy. "Well," she said, squaring her shoulders, "I guess it's time to show the universe what humans are really capable of." As they hurried to prepare for the coming onslaught, Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that the true test of their alliance, their ingenuity, and perhaps even their species' future was only just beginning. Rising tensions. The mood in Outpost Epsilon had shifted dramatically. What began as cautious optimism following their initial victory had devolved into a powder keg of suspicion and fear. Dr. Evelyn Chen found herself caught in the middle, trying to balance scientific curiosity with the very real concerns of her fellow humans. "You can't seriously be considering this," Jenkins hissed, pacing the small confines of Evelyn's office. "Letting that thing experiment on us." Evelyn sighed, rubbing her temples. "Zixlith isn't proposing experiments, Jenkins. They're asking for volunteers to provide genetic samples. It could be our best chance at developing a defense against the scourge." "And you trust them?" Jenkins demanded. "After they admitted to coming here to study us like lab rats." Before Evelyn could respond, an alarm blared through the outpost. They rushed to the command center, where a holographic display showed a scourge ship breaching their outer defenses. "They've adapted faster than we anticipated," Zixlith observed, its multiple limbs working furiously over a control panel. "Need human genetic material now. No time for debate." Jenkins bristled. "Like hell. We're not your test subjects." Evelyn tried to calm the situation. "Everyone, please, we need to focus on the immediate threat. Zixlith, what are our options?" The alien's response was cut short as a violent tremor shook the outpost. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling as the scourge weapons found their mark. "Structural integrity compromised," a computerized voice announced. "Hull breach imminent in Sector 7. That's the biolab." Evelyn realized with horror. "All our research." Without hesitation, she sprinted toward the damaged sector, ignoring Jenkins' shouts to come back. As she approached the biolab, she saw Zixlith already there, its powerful limbs prying open the jammed door. "What are you doing?" Evelyn demanded, struggling to be heard over the blaring alarms. "Securing samples," Zixlith replied. "Critical for survival." As the alien emerged from the lab, clutching the container of human tissue samples, another blast rocked the outpost. The ceiling above them groaned ominously. "Look out!" Evelyn cried, shoving Zixlith aside as a section of the roof collapsed. Pain exploded through her leg as a heavy beam pinned her to the floor. Through a haze of agony, Evelyn saw Zixlith hesitate, looking from her to the precious samples in its grasp. For a moment, she feared the alien would abandon her to save the genetic material. But then, with surprising gentleness, Zixlith set down the container and moved to free her. As the alien carefully lifted the beam, Evelyn caught sight of Jenkins rushing toward them, his face a mask of fury and fear. "Get away from her," he shouted, raising a makeshift weapon. "No, wait." Evelyn called out, but it was too late. Jenkins fired, the energy blast catching Zixlith in what passed for its shoulder. The alien recoiled, dropping the beam back onto Evelyn's leg. She cried out in pain. Zixlith's translator crackled with static as it spoke. "Misunderstanding. Trying to help. Must work together, or all is lost." But Jenkins wasn't listening. He moved to fire again, only to be thrown off his feet as another blast from the scourge ship hit nearby. As Evelyn lay trapped, watching the chaos unfold around her, she realized how quickly their fragile alliance had unraveled. Fear, mistrust, and misunderstanding had turned potential allies against each other at the worst possible moment. Through the gaping hole in the outpost's hull, she could see the looming form of the scourge ship drawing ever closer. Time was running out, not just for their small band of humans and their alien visitor, but possibly for both their species. "Stop this," she shouted, her voice hoarse with pain and desperation. "The only way we survive is together." As Jenkins and Zixlith faced off, the fate of their unlikely alliance, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. Evelyn knew that the next few moments would determine whether they stood united against the scourge threat or fell divided. The outpost shuddered again, a stark reminder of the relentless enemy at their doorstep. In that moment of crisis, Evelyn silently prayed that human nature's capacity for cooperation would win out over its tendency toward fear and aggression. Their lives, and countless others, depended on it. Unexpected resolution. The standoff between Jenkins and Zixlith seemed to stretch into eternity, the chaos of the Scourge attack fading into the background. Dr. Evelyn Chen, still pinned beneath the fallen beam, watched with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Jenkins, please," she pleaded, her voice strained with pain. "Zixlith was trying to help me. We need to work together." Jenkins' grip on his weapon tightened, his gaze darting between Evelyn and the alien. "How can we trust it? How do we know this isn't all part of some plan?" Before anyone could respond, a deafening crash echoed through the outpost. The Scourge had breached the main hall. Time had run out. In that moment of crisis, Zixlith made a decision that would change everything. With deliberate movements, it set down the container of genetic samples and raised its limbs in a gesture of surrender. No deception. The alien's translator crackled. Only shared survival. Humans' key to defeating Scourge, yes, but not through experiments. Through cooperation. Through unpredictability. As if to emphasize its point, Zixlith moved slowly towards Evelyn, ignoring the weapon trained on it. With remarkable gentleness, the alien lifted the beam, pinning her down. Jenkins, his resolve wavering, lowered his weapon slightly. "What do you mean, unpredictability?" Evelyn, now free, sat up with a grimace. "I think I understand," she said, looking at Zixlith with newfound clarity. "It's not just our genetics that make us unique. It's our ability to adapt, to think creatively in crisis." Zixlith's body shifted in what Evelyn now recognized as agreement. "Correct. Scourge predicts based on patterns. Humans defy patterns, create new solutions. Like now." The ground shook as heavy footsteps approached. The Scourge boarding party had arrived. They were out of time. Evelyn stood, wincing at the pain in her leg, but driven by a sudden spark of inspiration. "Zixlith, you said the Scourge rely on a hive mind, right? What if we could use that against them?" The alien's eyes swiveled, focusing intently on her. "Explain." As Evelyn quickly outlined her plan, Jenkins' eyes widened in disbelief. "That's insane," he muttered. "It'll never work." "Precisely," Zixlith responded, a note of what could almost be described as excitement in its mechanized voice. "Unpredictable. Scourge cannot anticipate." With the sound of the approaching Scourge growing louder, they sprang into action. Evelyn and Jenkins worked feverishly to modify their communication array, while Zixlith used its advanced knowledge to interface with the alien technology. Just as the first Scourge drones burst into the command center, they activated their hastily constructed device. A piercing signal filled the air, causing the Scourge to writhe in apparent agony. "It's working," Evelyn shouted over the cacophony. "The conflicting commands are overloading their hive mind." They watched in awe as the Scourge forces fell into disarray. Without their central coordination, the fearsome invaders became little more than mindless drones, easily neutralized. As the dust settled and the realization of their victory sank in, Evelyn turned to Zixlith. "I think I'd finally understand what you meant about humans being the key. It's not about our genetics at all, is it?" The alien's translator hummed to life. "Not entirely. Human unpredictability, creativity in crisis. This is true strength. Cannot be replicated in lab. Must be experienced, learned." Jenkins, still somewhat wary but clearly impressed, nodded slowly. "So where does this leave us? What happens now?" Zixlith's response was tinged with what Evelyn could swear was hope. "Propose alliance. True partnership between humans and consortium. Share knowledge, culture, face galactic threats together." As they stood amidst the wreckage of their small outpost, Evelyn felt the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about their survival anymore. It was about the future of humanity and its place in a much larger, more complex universe. "Well," she said, a smile tugging at her lips despite the gravity of the situation, "I'd say that's one small step for a human-alien alliance, one giant leap for intergalactic relations." Jenkins groaned at the pun, but even he couldn't suppress a chuckle. As they began the work of securing the outpost and establishing communication with Earth, Evelyn marveled at how far they'd come. From first contact to mortal peril to the dawn of a new era for humanity, all in the span of a few chaotic days. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with misunderstandings to overcome and bridges to build. But as she watched Jenkins and Sixlith working side by side to repair a damaged console, Evelyn felt a surge of optimism. Humanity had taken its first real steps into the galactic community. And true to form, they had done it in the most unpredictable way possible. As the first transmissions from Earth began to come through, filled with a mixture of wonder and concern, Evelyn squared her shoulders. They had a lot of explaining to do, and a whole universe of possibilities to explore. The adventure, it seemed, was just beginning.